Hey there folks, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another video, and this is a paid request for Quiana828, a series of reactions she had wanted me to do. Thank you so much for that. For those interested in requesting any type of reactions, reviews, topics, tier lists, rankings, video game playthroughs, whatever the case may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. Do have a CashApp as well. Links are down below in the info box, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. Now the title, and this is from Patrick CC, which I'm not familiar with his work, but a lot of people are because he has 2.5 million subscribers, so he definitely knows what he's doing, so bravo to him. But the video is called The Backlash Against Peter Dinklage is Insane. And before I start, let me just say this. I have not seen the video yet. To me, there's nothing insane about it. Peter Dinklage seems like a pretentious asshat that was against the Snow White movie, saying you should not cast little people. Little people are better than this. So then they said, they being the producers, directors, okay, well we're going to have, I guess we're going to have, other people or CGI people go to the CGI bird, Pittsburgh, wherever bird that's it, go to the CGI castle, get a bunch of CGI people, cast the CGI people, make them get the money, make them get the tenure, make them get the time, and look ugly, fugly, but ugly. And that whole part shit show, Snow White and the 7 dicks, 7 hornswoggles, 7 cum guzzlers, was just a train wreck ready to happen. And I'm sure it'll be touched on this, but a lot of people in the little people community were mad at Peter Dinklage. Hornswoggle from WWE, Brad Williams, who's a comedian who happens to be short, Wee Man from Jackass. A lot of people are like, who the hell does this guy think he is? He's taking money off the table for people. This is a guy that we did, dude. You're successful. You got the money. You got the fame. You probably got enough money now. You could retire. A lot of people aren't. A lot of up-and-coming people aren't. Maybe your intentions were cool. Your intentions were righteous in a way where, okay, we don't want you to be part of demeaning tasks. But number one, you could take those characters and really work with them. So if you think they're one-dimensional, you can make them three-dimensional. And you could work in characters, characteristics, personalities, backstories, etc. And all that was distracted with how ugly these CGI monstrosities were. Also, Peter Dinklage, you were in a film called Tiptoes, where Gary Oldman played a short person. And see, now Hollywood is afraid of casting little people, so now what they'll do is they'll get a grown-ass person and shorten him up, because, oh, if you did a little person, then they'll be upset that, oh, it's we're using the dwarf community for this. Why do you think they got Hugh Grant to be that little guy in Wonka? They couldn't get an actual little person because, oh, be looked at too judgmental and demeaning. And some people, yeah, I want the job. I want to work. So, Peter Dinklage, some of these people would say, speak for yourself, asshole. Mind your own business. But anyway, let's get into it. I'm like 4 minutes in. I'll pause the beginning. 3, 2, 1, pressing play.
After one small comment on a podcast, Peter Dinklage managed to piss off nearly every little person in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You, Peter Dinklage.
There's Hornswoggle.
Are you watching, Dinklage? Do you know that you took work away from me?
Peter became one of the most respected actors of his generation by refusing to let Hollywood reduce him to these stereotypical roles.
Is he really one of the
people
most
often
respected
get.
actors of his
But since
generation?
he has
Really?
reached the pinnacle of success in the industry, he may have forgotten just how many dwarf actors are still relying on those exact jobs to survive. Or maybe he
Okay.
is gatekeeping them to remain
How many
on top,
people have said
because
he's one of the
what
most
sounded
respected
like him
actors
standing up for his
of a
community
generation?
actually
I've
may
never
have
heard that
resulted
before.
in Hollywood erasing little people from the screen entirely. It's so bad that it's being compared to by some little people as the quote physical version of blackface. As an aspiring actor with achondroplasia, Dinklage was determined to avoid low-hanging fruit opportunities that might have helped his career.
You mean like Tiptoes?
He said, "I was in an office for quite some time, longer than I should have been, but
People
I was
in the
terrified
little
of not
people
being able
community
to pay
said the movie
bills. I was
look up
turning
the
down
trailer,
acting
it's
roles,
ridiculous.
which
They
weren't
said that's
really
more
acting
ridiculous than
roles,
anything
commercials and stuff
that you
like that.
find
So I just
demeaning.
stayed in this cubicle for a few years. Dinklage started out in a very common position that a lot of little people
I mean, Peter
confront when
Dinklage was in
aspiring to be
Pixels. That
actors.
movie is
Most were traditionally cast for fantasy
more shit and
roles,
demeaning
which
than
Dinklage
anything
found disgusting and cruel.
like Wizard of
Actors
Oz.
with dwarfism are relegated to being creatures. They're not really complex human beings, so I was not really interested in that. But ultimately, he
You
knew
mean
his
like
career
Willow?
wouldn't take off unless he made a few compromises. There were a number of films that he starred in where his dwarfism contributed to the role, but he wasn't being paraded around as a creature or prop. Instead, he was able to show more emotional depth, with dwarfism just being a part of the character, like how he starred as a defeated actor in the dark meta-comedy Living in Oblivion with Steve Buscemi. Buscemi recommended him for a role in Alexander Rockwell's comedy 13 Moons when Dinklage couldn't find an agent, and it was with this exposure that Dinklage was able to show who he really was. Rockwell openly talked about how his first impressions disappeared.
Well, you know
the
what?
second
Then
he
how
got to
about you
know
make a
him.
film
He might come in
company
with some luggage
and
about
say,
Peter's
this is
physicality.
going to be a film
Rockwell
company
said, right away,
for
he
people to
cuts
come
right through
in
that.
and
They're
show
thinking,
what they're
he's a
worth,
dwarf. He's a
despite
dwarf.
their
But
size.
Peter comes shining through as a personality beyond any kind of diminutive
Why you
size
do that?
issue. And pretty much anyone who met Dinklage felt the same way. He was wonderfully articulate and insightful, and clearly wanted to be seen as more than just a dwarf actor.
He's also
At
a
the same
pretentious
time, he didn't
dickhead.
want his size to be the focus of every conversation. But when he did speak about little people in Hollywood, his approach was usually thoughtful rather than confrontational. He wasn't publicly attacking others or aggressively calling out studios by name. He simply believed the industry should slowly move beyond using dwarves as simple fantasy characters or visual gimmicks and start giving them the same depth and complexity as any other performer.
Not dangerous, but they're kind of, they're creatures. They're ethereal beings. These dwarves usually are, and they're asexual, and they're either fools or they're very filled with wisdom and have know all the answers, but a bit removed. And they never get the princess. That's fine, but we're in the modern.
Okay, then write a film, direct a film, make a studio,
Still have that.
and make those movies.
Stereotypes out in this interview. I want to avoid that, but it doesn't
Stop playing with your
perpetuate
teeth,
itself,
dude.
and
Stop playing with your mouth.
I see it in today's films. And
Get your hand out of your mouth.
pieces of art.
I'm gonna do the whole thing like this.
I'm not interested in playing those things.
In that clip, you can feel his hesitance, like he was walking a fine line, because in the back of his mind, he knew that these stereotypical roles also do give little people consistent jobs in the industry, which is important for them to be able to take to then one day be able to advance their careers. But before we get into that, let's say you're about to jump on a roller coaster.
But at the
and you
same
need someone
time,
to
they
watch
are
your
grown-ass
wallet, so you hand
people
it to
that
a
say yes to
pickpocket.
these
That's not
projects.
security, that's a donation. There's a reason you wouldn't trust a pickpocket with your wallet, just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is
Oh, it's an
America's largest
advertisement.
injury law firm. Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of
You know,
fighting
it's weird.
for people for over 35 years.
How do these
With over
people
$30 billion
get, like,
recovered for their clients,
these
Morgan
things
& Morgan
where
knows a thing or two about
they-
fighting to get you the compensation you deserve.
do they just get an
Hiring
email,
Morgan & Morgan is like
say
hiring an
this,
army to go into battle. They've got more
and then
than
you get
1,000
paid?
lawyers and
I guess the
100
idea is
offices
if
nationwide. If
I don't
you're
get these
injured by
kind of
someone
things.
else's
I'm not
negligence,
successful
you deserve
enough.
to be paid. But not
Not
all
even-
law firms are the same. Hire the wrong
What's
one,
the one
and you
where
may
you
be beat
shave your
before you even
balls?
start. If you're ever injured, you can
See,
check
like,
out
everybody
Morgan
had
& Morgan.
that.
Their fee is
I
free
didn't even get
unless
that.
they win. For more information, you can go to forthepeople.com/Patrick.
Don't say Beast Aftershave, but that's Rocky
In
2.
2003, Dinklage would get a role as a train enthusiast named Finn McBride in Tom McCarthy's The Station Agent.
Hey, buddy, where's Snow White?
Okay, I get it. He's getting roles that have
While
more
having dwarfism was
character
a
work in
central
them.
point of Peter Dinklage's character, he didn't mind because Finn had the depth he was looking for. The movie was pretty brilliant because it found a way to make you forget about his size until someone abusive confronted him with prejudice. You spent most of the hour and 30 minutes trying to figure out exactly how he felt. Often roles written for someone my size are a little flat. I love this about this character that Tom wrote. He has this stuff going on. He has romance. He's got romantic feelings. He's got anger and he's got flaws. I'm not a spokesperson or an activist for people my size. I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that stuff. Comical movies starring dwarves such as Austin Powers films, because people can do what they want to do. Sure, it might perpetuate a stereotype, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I have a grand time at those movies. I was laughing my butt off at those movies, so I'm not going to cast my judgment upon it. For me personally, that's something I try and stay away from.
Probably
That
not
same
for
year
long.
he starred in The Station Agent, Dinklage took another minor role in one of the most iconic Christmas movies of the 21st century.
That film
Elf.
sucks.
Every Christmas season, little people in Hollywood get the call to play Santa's helpers, but the movie Elf was different. The only actual dwarf who was cast in the film was Peter Dinklage, and he didn't play an elf, but rather as Miles Finch, a successful children's author. The short scene he's in is simple, yet extremely layered. Buddy, the actual elf, who is 6'3", sees a short man and immediately assumes he must secretly be one of Santa's elves.
I do not
a
like this
businessman,
film. This
not a
film is
normal
so
person,
annoying,
just a
especially
fantasy
Will Ferrell.
creature.
Does Santa
It's so
know that you
irritating.
left the workshop?
You know, we're all laughing our heads off.
Did you have to borrow a reindeer to
So
get down here?
annoying.
Buddy not treating him like a regular guy represents the exact frustration Dinklage had spent years dealing with in real life. Also, Peter's character in and of itself seems like a protest against the roles that Hollywood usually offers little people. Instead of playing the magical elf, Dinklage plays the man insulted by being mistaken for one, but they still did use his physical stature to make the scene funny. Finch hilariously runs across the table, which seemingly takes him forever, then whips Buddy's ass despite the obvious size disadvantage. And this balance is what made the role feel so representative of Dinklage himself.
Too bad
He
it was
never
in a
wanted to
shitty,
pretend his
unfunny movie,
dwarfism
like,
didn't
because Will
exist. He
Ferrell-
just didn't want it to be the only thing
There's
people
a few
saw
films
when they looked
that
at
he's
him.
done
He would
that's
take that same
decent,
approach
like
with
the
his
other
character
guys.
Tyrion Lannister in Game of
But
Thrones,
man.
which launched Peter into mainstream success, making him a full-blown A-list
Which is funny
star.
'cause it's a
When Dinklage
fantasy
found himself
thing,
talking to the
but I
co-creator
guess
of
it
Game of
is written
Thrones,
differently
David Benioff, he was
than
extremely cautious about taking on a fantasy
typical
role.
ones.
But David had actually
There you
met
go.
Peter
Yeah,
at dinner
fantasy.
parties and felt he was the obvious choice for Tyrion Lannister.
I'm not
He was
really into
always
Game
much
of Thrones
friendlier to my
anyway.
wife Amanda than he was to me.
I never-
knew he was incredibly funny,
I
incredibly
watched and
smart,
reviewed
had
a
that
couple
caustic
episodes of
wit.
season one,
Game of
and I'm
Thrones
like,
was
I
a
don't
TV
get the big
adaptation
deal
of a
with
book
this.
written by George R.R. Martin.
I mean, I'm not even
In
into
that meeting with
fantasy
Benioff
much
and the
anyway. I
other
don't like Lord of the
co-creator Dan
Rings.
Weiss, before anyone explained
If it's
Game of
fantasy, I
Thrones
like
or
Conan the
Tyrion Lannister to
Barbarian,
him,
Conan
he
the
made a simple
Destroyer and stuff,
request:
but
no
I'm
beard,
not a Lord of
no
the Rings
pointed
fan.
shoes. Dwarves in these genres always have
Or any
this
of that
look.
stuff.
My guard was up. Not even my guard, my metal fence. My barbed wire was up. Even Lord of the
Willow
Rings
is
had dwarf
okay, I
tossing
don't
jokes
mind
in
it,
It's
you
like,
know, but
really? But he learned from Benioff and Weiss that
I'm more into
Tyrion was a
action,
different kind
horror,
of fantasy little person.
sci-fi.
He's somebody who
Did
turns that on its
fantasy,
head. No beard, no pointy
There are
shoes, a
exceptions.
romantic, real human
There's always
being.
exceptions,
Even
but-
off-screen, he seemed to take the part very seriously. When asked if he had read the books, he admitted that he'd only read the first in fear it would interfere
They're
with
not
his
really big
performance
on
in
Game of
future
Thrones.
seasons.
I don't want to know what happens to me down the road. I'm terrified, and I don't want to play any sort of ending when I'm doing the show. And I just live and breathe this show, and I'm so embarrassed. I have to leave. Yeah, why'd you have to?
But Dinklage initially believed that the potential success of Game of
Well, it's
Thrones
funny
was too good
because
to be true.
Isn't that the guy who created the book?
It's not
Isn't he
gonna
like
work.
still
Nobody's gonna
writing
buy us.
books
In
and
the
he's
first
never
season, we
finished
didn't
it?
have any money, truly. I mean, it's all relative. We had some money. But even at the end, if you visit our base camp, our trailers were the same as they were in the first season. It was really, and I think that's what made the spirit of all of us come together so well.
And then I heard the Game of Thrones finale was a shit show that even the hardcore fans didn't like,
Got
so
higher as it went along, but the conditions were kind of great, like an indie movie almost. I mean, the sets were extraordinary, and the costumes were extraordinary. That didn't feel indie, but the vibe did, and I think that's what really. But to answer your question,
No, I was kind of cynical, like, this is great. Nobody's going to go for it.
Over the next 4 seasons, his character became the fan favorite of the entire show. Peter Dinklage made Tyrion so believable and human that when fans began criticizing the show's writing near season 8, they blamed the writers instead of Dinklage for how the character devolved. Regardless of the way the show eventually ended, which
Worse
many
ending
felt
to a
was
TV.
terrible, Dinklage had finally gained the respect of Hollywood on a massive scale. He received 7 major awards, including an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series, and with an estimated $25 million net worth and worldwide recognition, all the gates of Hollywood opened for Peter in a way that they never had for dwarves in the past. He was basically able to handpick any career opportunity he wanted, hosting Saturday Night Live, playing Bolivar Trask in the X-Men franchise, voice acting in the Angry Birds movie, or acting as Eitri in Avengers Infinity War. Now, if Peter wanted to act as a dwarf, it was a choice. I feel really lucky, although I hate that word, lucky. It cheapens a lot of hard work. Living in Brooklyn in an apartment without any heat and paying for dinner at the bodega with dimes, I don't think I felt myself lucky back then. Doing plays for $50 and trying to be true to myself as an artist and turning down
good for
commercials
him.
where they wanted a leprechaun. Saying I
Congrats
was
on him.
lucky negates the hard work I put in and spits on the guy who's freezing his ass off back in Brooklyn. So I won't say I'm lucky. I'm fortunate enough to find or attract very talented people. For some reason I found them and they found me. Unfortunately, Peter Dinklage didn't seem to understand that his voice now carried a ton of weight in industry decisions. He had the kind of star power that can get people fired and even cause the production to stop if the vision didn't fit exactly what he wanted. While it seemed like Dinklage used to be a lot more careful with his words, he probably didn't feel like he needed to do that anymore. And his comments on the Mark Maron show would harm opportunities for the community he tried to uplift for so long. And it all started with the disaster that was the remake of a Walt Disney classic,
Disaster
Snow
is
White
putting
and
it
the Seven
lightly.
Dwarfs. In 2021, Disney started casting for the main roles in a live-action remake of Snow White, but before they even started filming, the entire decision was drowning in controversy. People were already resistant of live actions as a total cash grab, but the decision
Which they are
to cast
cash
Rachel
grabs.
Zegler for the main role received criticism for countless reasons. Some were racially driven, like questioning why a woman of Latin descent was playing a character whose skin is described as the fairest of them all. Others were critical of her open hatred for the original story and desire to change it into something
Well, it was
modern,
because
but
the
most
fairest
people
of them
just
all
simply
is
thought she was
because
annoying.
There's a big focus
White
on her
as-
love story.
It's literally
The guy who literally
white as
stalks her.
snow. That's why she's called
Weird,
Snow
weird.
White.
But then Peter Dinklage
Her look is as
unexpectedly
white as
became a part of the
snow.
controversy
That's
when
literally
the
how
media
you
pulled a
describe the
soundbite
character.
from comedian Mark Maron's WTF podcast. Peter criticized Disney for
But to be
celebrating
fair,
the
I guess
casting
it's
of Rachel
like,
Zegler while refusing to
you know, the whole
acknowledge that the
Odyssey
story
thing
itself
nowadays.
could be insensitive towards little people.
Literally no offense to anything, but I was a little.
I guess, you know, it's funny how things change. Like, I don't give a shit about the hell of
They're very
Maybe
proud
because,
to
like,
cast a
I don't care about the Odyssey
Latino
story.
actress as
So if you
Snow
care about the
White.
Odyssey story, it
But you're
makes
still
sense.
telling the story of Snow
Still
White,
Snow White,
and
yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
Take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That
And-
makes no sense to me.
But so
'Cause
what?
you're progressive in one way, and then but you're still making that backward
Oh,
story of
about-
seven dwarves living in a cave. What the you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause?
Now, for anyone unfamiliar with the story of Snow White, the dwarves do not live in a cave. They work in a mine, but actually live together in a
Who
small
doesn't know
cottage
this?
where
Well,
they
I
take
guess
Snow White
Peter doesn't
in
know the
after
story.
she escapes the evil queen, making them quite literally the heroes of the story. Also, what's interesting about this is Peter says, "Have I done nothing to advance the cause?" implying that his success as a serious actor, as well as speaking on behalf of little people, should have gotten through to Hollywood that casting dwarves in fantasy roles is insensitive. But then a minute later, he also questions if a dwarf community even exists, and if it does, then he is not the voice of it.
the dwarf community is tired of this.
Is there one? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, right? In order to seek representation, you have to have a community movement, which also is the heart of what becomes the issue of
Mark Maron, what the fuck
But
you
it's such a
talking about? You don't even know
I
what
know.
you're talking
And
about.
I'm not affiliated with any. Groups
Mark
or
Maron
anything,
talks
but
out of his ass
it's
a
such
lot,
minority
too.
That it causes a real well, who the cares, And that's entertainment. I mean, entertainment.
Right, but I think that's also what I'm talking about is that there's a movement on behalf of like anti-wokeness to get us back to who the cares. Now I'm not
Right.
I'm not saying that you should stand up for
Or Marin, just
your community.
fucking
It's not your
pick a lane,
responsibility.
dude.
Maybe
Stop being a
relative. I don't know,
pussy.
would you even consider it marginalized or just not even acknowledged? You know, other than some, you know, what to call people.
Acknowledge.
But
You
given
won
that
an
tensions were
Emmy and
already
you're worth
so high
$25 million.
surrounding this movie, Peter
That's more
Dinklage's
acknowledgement than
comments
I've
went
gotten,
mega viral,
and
to
many
the
other
point where
people
mainstream
gotten.
outlets like Fox News were reporting on it. As a result,
If
Disney
I did
responded by
$25
changing the
million
entire
and an
direction for
Emmy
the film.
award,
We are
and was
taking
part of a
different
successful
approach with
show
these
like
7
Game of
characters
Thrones,
and have been consulting with
then
members
man,
of the dwarfism community. They
if
said
that's
in a
not being
statement, "We look
acknowledged,
forward to sharing more as the film heads into
let's
production
trade
after a
places,
lengthy
Peter
development
Dinklage.
period."
Me and you, let's
Disney
trade places,
responding
dude.
and changing the entire direction of their film just because Peter Dinklage wasn't happy is truly representative of how powerful he was in Hollywood. But nobody expected how badly Disney would botch their second attempt at not offending anyone. They decided to replace the dwarves with what they called magical creatures, which were basically a group of 7 people in goofy outfits with
about
no
this.
defining characteristics.
So now they're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves. Okay.
Okay, but what do they call them?
Why
now,
would they
too?
get rid of
call
the
them
dwarves, though?
Special
No, magical creatures.
but they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. If
But
we're
that's
looking,
also more offensive to the dwarf community than like
so
calling
if we're
them
looking at
dwarves.
updating
Magical
stories and
creatures.
everything, you actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group. You just erased that whole image.
The magical creatures change backfired so hard that Disney backpedaled again. Only this time they decided to go with
Oh my
horrible-looking
God.
CGI dwarves that would be supported by a cast of voice actors. And only one of the 7 dwarves, Grumpy to be specific, was voiced by an actual little person.
It's a bad thing.
There's
I'm
Wee
not
Man. There you
agreeing
go.
with it.
From Jackass.
One, because what they're doing is pretty much you're replacing jobs that people could have as little people.
Yeah.
Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, it's 4 dwarfs.
Even though it seemed like Peter Dinklage was trying to stand up and defend little people, he actually ended up receiving a lot of criticism from the dwarf community, with many believing that he single-handedly robbed a demographic of potential jobs. The first to call Peter out publicly was
Hornswoggle.
WWE wrestler Hornswoggle.
I mean, my biggest thing is he wants to be progressive, and it's all about progression, and I support that completely. But the issue is him being progressive is eliminating 7 potential dream jobs from the dwarf acting community, and that's my issue here.
Here's the thing.
He's saying he wants to move forward and do good.
What if you
for the
wrote those
community.
characters very well?
These are dream jobs.
They're heroes.
I got hired by WWE. WWE was my dream job since I was 4 years old. Since I was 4 years old,
If you write
all I wanted
them
to be was a
as
WWE superstar.
really likable,
And
like
in any other circumstance,
Andre
it
the
wouldn't have
Giant
been
and the
able to be
Princess
done by
Bride,
me. I'm not
like the
6'4",
opposite, like
I'm
how
250
tall and big
pounds,
he
But
is.
they were looking for a person like me.
He
a
wasn't
little
just,
person
oh,
to
he's just
fill this
tall,
role.
dumb guy.
And
He
although
became a
was
very
much more
lovable,
articulate and
memorable
nuanced on
character.
Fox News, years later, he was much more blunt and direct about his feelings towards Peter.
I feel like you're one of the most recognizable little people on the planet.
You, Peter Dinklage. He's
That's real heat, too.
I hate him. He costed so many people in my community jobs with that Snow White bullshit. Pisses me off. He wanted to make a statement, and he thought he was making some cool, hip thing. It wasn't. When he did Elf, that checked cash just fine. Tyrion Lannister was a role for a little person. He cashed that check for all those years. Like, I'm okay not going out for Brad Pitt's role. Give me Grumpy or Happy or Sleepy. In a major Disney remake?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. And then you're gonna have 7 dwarves, then they're extras, then they're stunt doubles that are all gonna get paid.
Comedian Brad Williams has also been open
Drink
about
to
how he
him.
feels towards Dinklage's comments.
It was Dinklage, and then he kicked a lot of us out of a movie. So now it's me.
And while Brad likes to be silly when talking about this, since he's a comedian, he is serious about how he feels about Peter Dinklage.
I tell you what I would have played.
What?
I would have played a dwarf in the live-action Snow White movie, but then they took out the dwarves. Thanks, Dinklage.
Yeah, because
Are you watching? Are you watching, Dinklage? Do you know that you took work away from me and my 6-year-old dwarf daughter? You took money and food out of my 6-year-old daughter's mouth. Thanks, Dink. All right, sorry. That's the yak talking.
Did you really get upset?
Yeah, legit upset.
But some little people in Hollywood, like Lee Gill, were not as harsh towards Dinklage. He felt that his heart was in the right place, but maybe wasn't as clear with his criticism. Lee felt that it was just the story that should be updated.
But I think it should kind of just be seen as a great opportunity to update it. And if you think about it, the Seven Dwarfs are kind of the heroes of that tale. And if you give all 7 of them some real depth and a bit more of an important part in the film, that's 7 great opportunities.
That's what I was just saying.
Actors, you know?
Zach Roloff from Little People Big World expressed the same sentiments.
So if the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
However, the harshest criticism towards Peter is that he has become a gatekeeper in Hollywood, that he somehow has the authority to decide what roles little people should or shouldn't get. Peter Dinklage made it to the top and took the ladder with him. Peter Dinklage wanted all the glory. Others just straight up called him a hypocrite. Peter Dinklage, little people shouldn't play fantasy dwarves. It's offensive. Also, Peter Dinklage plays fantasy dwarves in Narnia,
he was
Game
in
of
Narnia?
Thrones, Avengers Endgame. But what's even worse is that it does look like Dinklage's comments may have made Hollywood studios scared to cast little people in any role
Hugh
that
Grant
might
and Willy
merely be
Wonka,
considered
that
offensive.
Wonka movie.
The biggest example of this would be the
Thank
casting
you.
of the average size Hugh Grant in 2023's Wonka. Instead
Thank
of
you.
hiring an actual dwarf or little person, they simply chose to CGI Hugh Grant down to a small size to make him into an Oompa Loompa. Actor Mark Pavanelli, who has dwarfism, compared it to one of the most disgusting forms of discrimination in entertainment history. They're trying to maintain the physicality of dwarfism, but erase the authenticity of dwarfism, which is troubling. And that's why you go, well, this is like a physical version of blackface. Even Warwick Davis, who has a huge following because of his fantasy roles, has politely mentioned that these comments have effectively silenced the community in a way that might be permanent. It's a shame because there's a lot of really talented short actors in the world, but they're not getting a chance to do what they do. Some of them have trained for years to do this, and they're just not getting a look in. You know, it would be wrong to cast someone as a disabled person in a wheelchair with an able body, I think, but they're doing it all the time with short people. I'm not actively campaigning on this, but it would be nice if my voice was heard on these issues. As of today, Peter Dinklage has never doubled down on his comments or publicly responded to any of the criticism he received.
Of course, because he buried his head in the sand.
He still has no trouble getting consistent work in Hollywood, getting roles in movies like Brothers, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, and The Toxic Avenger. I think the reason why people got so frustrated with him is because he kind of picks and chooses when he wants to be mad or offended on behalf of little people. Peter Dinklage never really positioned himself as the outspoken leader of dwarf representation in Hollywood. He often seemed uncomfortable or downright denied being the spokesperson for an entire community at all. Most of his earlier criticism towards
Not going down
Hollywood
my
was subtle.
soapbox
He
while
simply
getting on
wanted
his
to be viewed
soapbox
as
in the
an
Mark
actor
Maron
first, but it
podcast.
was his comments on Snow White that carried the tone and influence of someone speaking on behalf
So you're down
of
on
an
your
entire
soapbox.
demographic, and then immediately after distancing himself from that responsibility. It's this constant pushing and pulling throughout his entire career that makes people wonder how much authority Peter actually wants on this issue. And since he has reached the pinnacle of this industry and has no trouble finding work, I don't think we're ever going to get a response from him. There's literally no incentive for him to do anything other than stay silent. All we can hope for at this point is that Hollywood doesn't continue to go down this road of hyper-focusing on not offending anyone and just get back to making real movies again. Speaking of real movies, the dark reality is that some of the best films are those that cause the actor to lose their mind or potentially their lives. Check out this video to hear more about that.
Well, that was a pretty good video, I gotta say. That was a pretty damn good video. I'm sad that Tiptoes wasn't mentioned, because look up the trailer of Tiptoes and you'll see just how weird that damn film is. I've never seen the film, I just saw the trailer. The trailer is weird enough. Matthew McConaughey's in it, and it's like, he's from a family of little people, but he's Matthew McConaughey, and the idea is he gets with someone, and they don't have a baby, and there's worry of, will their baby be a dwarf, and Gary Oldman plays a dwarf. And it's a weird-ass movie. And the performance of a lifetime, that's how they describe Gary Oldman's character, his acting. But anyway, that was a very well-done video. Wee Man Especially a Hornswoggle Brad Williams. Roasted the hell out of it. I do remember those bits. And yeah, Peter Dinklage. Exactly, like those. I forget the two gentlemen's names. Yeah, okay. If you want to do the Seven Dwarves, if you don't like the story, then work the story to better beats. Fulfill what obligation you feel will work, justifying characteristics, personalities, depth, in the hands of the writer. How deal with the actors and go, let's improve this. But when you don't even have actors on sets that, hey, can we riff? Can we ad-lib? How about we make the dialogue better? You can't do that on the set when everything's fucking CG and shit and you're just doing voices afterward, and you don't have that in the same... You don't have that... You definitely don't have that same feel as you would on set. And then the fact that Peter Dinklage didn't say anything said everything. He knew he screwed up. He puts his head in the sand. And he's like, no, I'm not hearing you. I'm not listening. Because I'm not listening, it doesn't exist. And it doesn't hurt him because he's getting jobs. Like this guy said, he's getting jobs. If I look up Peter Dinklage, I bet he still has jobs coming out now. Right? Pixels, they didn't mention that because it's such a shitty movie. I don't blame them for not mentioning that. But let's see, you got going back a bit. Yeah, I want to check. Was he in Narnia? Yeah. Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian. Okay. But yeah, Avengers Infinity War, Angry Birds 1 and 2, Thor Love and Thunder, Transformers Rise of the Beast, Touch of the Avenger, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. He was in the movie The Thicket, which is a Western thriller, Brothers, which I don't think that film did well. Wicked, another fantasy film. Interesting. He was in the fucking Wizard of Oz. Oh my god, they're doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That's so backwards. But you were in the reimagining of Wizard of Oz. I never saw Wicked, so I didn't know that till now. Oh my god. What a two-faced hypocritical fuck. Snow White, that's too good for us. But I'll be in the fucking Wizard of Oz one. Wicker, a 2026 romantic fantasy film. By the way, Brothers with Josh Brolin got a 44% Rotten Tomatoes. Came out at Amazon MGM Studios. Was in select theaters, but there's no box office, so it came and went like the wind. I haven't seen the film with him and Josh Brolin, but no one remembers it. Well, great job on the video to this guy. Thank you once again, Quayon828, for the request. Take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you later. Fuck Peter Dinklage. He's a hypocritical asshat. The idea he buried himself in the sand. He's like, I'm not going to talk about it. No, it doesn't exist anymore. No, you can't hear me, and I can't hear you. No, we heard you too much. I'm glad he got roasted by multiple people in the industry. of his size and scope. Because if I did it, it'd be your judgmental of X, Y, and Z reasons. But no, people who are in the same community said, no, Peter Dinklage, you took jobs away. And stunt doubles and extras and all the other stuff, you took that away too. And now Hollywood is afraid to use because, oh, well, will we be demeaned? Will we be canceled? Will they later say, how dare you? Well, you took the paycheck, the check cleared. Can I did it? Give the role to me. You're not small enough. Well, give me the Hugh Grant treatment. I mean, yeah. Peter Dinklage, eat this. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.